Evening to you, Harjap. How are you today?
Evening, man. Just come back from Birmingham. Absolutely honoured to be the first person. I'm really happy to see your setup and your new jugger that you've got with your
That's
logo on
right.
it and your cup, that cup. It's brilliant.
The
I think it's
merch,
brilliant.
yeah, the
I'm really impressed.
merchandise is a bit there. Yeah, yeah, it's good. If I already told you I was in that cup, you probably think to start,
I know.
I know. So before I start, yeah, I
Yeah.
want
Go
you
on.
at this moment in time, yeah. I've just sent out a
Yeah.
tweet of saying that you should be replacing Piers Morgan on Good Morning Britain. If you get that gig, I'm definitely taking a cut out of that.
No problem, man. I'll give you commission or whatever they're going to pay me, which will probably be deal bunny. But I'm sure I'm not going to get the gig. But it's it's that's the way it goes in presenting. Like today you're a hero and tomorrow you're a zero. And I've been doing it for a long time, as you know. And it is the thing, you've got to watch what you say, you've got to be careful, and there's a lot of publicity stunts. But, a fair section of people, I don't think they'll miss Piers Morgan on GMB that much. And that seems to be the overall reaction from what I'm reading on my sort of timeline. But yeah, no, cheers for nominating me. But we'll have to change the name from Good Morning Britain to Sat Sri Akal Britain.
So when you talk about like that line in terms of where to kind of pitch it, I think everybody would kind of agree that you're definitely an individual who sort of gets the tone right, especially from the Punjabi community or the Desi community, any way that you want to speak about it. Like how did that come about for you to Piers jumps and dances on the line, and I think sometimes you do as well, but I think there's still a little bit of uh, a bit of respect still in your status and things like that. But how do you find what's good and what's not?
Do you know what? I found out what's good and what's not through experience. I'm not a TV presenter. I'm not a trained TV presenter. That only came out one day when someone put me in front of a TV camera and opened up the phone lines and said, answer the questions. That's literally how it happened. I mean, so from then, I've done a lot of presenting, I've done a lot of event hosting. I'm not trained for this, man. I'm a lawyer. So people
Yeah.
seem to forget that I'm a guy trained in law, solving legal problems. Yeah, so I'm just that's what I am. But as when I started becoming a guest on someone's show, like a radio show. My first radio show was I'll tell you what it was. It was in
You say
Birmingham
Raj
on Stratford
Radio, you
Road.
get yeah.
No. Right, so it was at Stratford Road, and there were two guys from Stratford Road, Godara, doing a show. One was Raj Kang, who helps
Right.
organize the Birmingham Nagar Kirtan and the Millas, and the other one was a guy called Jatinder from Warsaw. And what happened? I was looking for a job at the time, and and I used to go to that Stratford Road Godara a lot. I used to live on Stratford Road above Mushtaq's, above the post
Oh,
office next to Mushtaq.
so
So
that's like halfway down, isn't it? Around there or towards the
that's in the middle, yeah, in the middle,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So I've always been quite attached to Birmingham, like from the start. So, and in them days, there were no sat navs and all that. We used to bus it and
Mm.
drive our way around everywhere. So I used to know all the roads and from then. But yeah. So Jatinder and Raj just said, "Look, can you come and just talk about law one day on our show?" They had a 28-day radio license, and it's called Radio Nankana, and it used to run from that Gurdwara. And Mohan Singh was the pradhan at the time. So I said, "Yeah, all right, I'll come and talk about it." And what happened was I I went there, and as soon as I started talking about like what I do in immigration, people started calling up. All their lines started flashing, and they go,
Mm.
"This is unusual. We've never had our lines flash like this." And I said, "To be honest, I don't even know what's going on." And they said, "Well, let's answer the call." And then people started asking questions, and because I'd swallowed like the Bible on immigration, I just knew the answers off by hand in Punjabi, and I was just
Yeah.
like, "Acha, eh ho sakda, eh nahi, eh nahi, eh nahi." And we spent the whole show not talking about me or what I do, just answering
Mm.
questions for an hour. And they said, "Da kar aapa char hafte nahi karna. Why don't you come and do it every week?" And I was like, "All
Mm.
right, I'll come and do it every week." So yeah, I did that, and that was my first experience of an actual radio show. So it was on a 28-day radio license, and we was only local, going to the community of Spark Hill and Hall Green, and
Yeah.
Sparkbrook, that sort of areas, Ladypool Road, and because the transmitter wasn't that high, and up by so it's only about a 2 mile radius. But up there, which did it, got a good response. From then on, I went, to places like Lashkara, when Lashkara TV was on, Radio XL. I was there for quite a while, and
I did excel for a
MATV.
bit.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I was.
Yeah.
I think after it was Cash and Polly used to do the Bhangra show, and then
Okay.
Cash left, and I was at uni at the
Mm.
time at Nottingham, and I basically found this little pathway where I used to have this little section where I used to be like presented alongside with Polly, and I say, "Oh, these are
Yeah.
the upcoming gigs." So the promoters
Yeah.
used to say to me like, "Listen, look, if you mention on Saturday, we'll bring you and like whoever you want in as like a VIP." So it was
Yeah.
easy for me because every week I was doing it, walking in like that. I was like a superstar, and sometimes the promoters didn't even hear me actually say it, and they used to just let me in. So Radio XR, it was a bit of a, let's say diplomatically, it was a very uh,
I think the word is it was an
strange
experience.
environment. Yes,
It was
that's
an
the
experience.
experience. Yeah,
That's exactly what I would say. I used to a guy called Vicky used to present my show. Vicky Gill.
Vicky Gill. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Lovely chap. So
He's the only person who ever said to me, "Oh," and I still remember to this day. He goes to me, walks into the studio, and he goes, "Beautiful voice." And I was like, I looked at Polly. I said, "Listen, he ain't talking about me. I got a Brummy accent. I sound terrible." And he was looking at me dead in the eyes, says, "I got a beautiful voice." Still to this day, I say that to my wife, and I
she
can't tell you the
disagrees.
answer. Yeah, I can't tell you the answer.
she politely disagrees. Maybe not that politely.
So you and Vicky's show?
So, yeah, Vicky show for a long time. So we did that for about at least a couple of years, me and Vicky, and that became a big success. Then I started MATV in 2007 on the TV after my stint with Lashkara. And then in 2009, I got a phone call from Sonia Diol, who used to present at the BBC Asian Network, and said, "I want you on the show to talk about like a land in India." So I said, "All right." I went on there, did the show, was really successful. The next week, the Nihal show phoned me up on the BBC. They said, and they literally said, "Onu chhad Sonia nu tu idhar aa apne naal naale London ch aapa tu Birmingham ch kitho jaunga show karan." So I said, "You know what? You're saving me a journey. You're saving me a journey." So apart Odich Jania. But no, Sonia was really cool about it. And then I did Nihal with Nihal until Nihal left. And I still do the show. And I think I'm one of the longest running guests ever I think they've had on. So I've been on there for like since 2009. I've been like 12 saal ho gaye. I've been on the BBC Asian Network every month, once a month. And I've seen presenters come and go. Even when Nihal went and they were recruiting for a new presenter, they said, "Harjap, we can't think of anyone to plug the gap for a few weeks, at least till the new year. And that's going to take us time." So they said, "Do we present a?" So then I took over in the House show for 4 weeks over the Christmas period and then did the show. And then they said, "Can you do this full time?" And I said, "Listen, मैं वकील हैं, मैं बंदे वाले वीज़े लगाने हैं, है ना? All of Punjab is going to get angry with me if I decide to quit my job and do this full time. I just can't handle it, you know." And so I said, "Look, I'm happy being a guest, and I'm an opinionated person. I don't want to become that person who then can't say anything and like has to watch what he says and everywhere." And I said, "I'm known for my forthright views, and I've always said that. Look, the only thing I have really is my voice and my freedom to use that. And I don't want any restrictions placed on that." That's the same reason why I don't become a politician. People have said to politics, which are councillor Banja, you could run for parliament. And I said, no, because then I'll have to toe the party line and agree with what everyone says, even if I think it's wrong. So, Hannah, so even if they said like, then I would, otherwise I wouldn't have much of a career. I'd just sit on a back bench. So I'm not going to, I said, I'd rather use my voice to just say how I feel.
I don't think you know this, by the way, because But you know, when you were going for your when they were trying to get you to do it full time, I think when you presented it after in the hall, you had some test interviews. I was
What did you?
I was one of your guests that they
You
tested me
were.
on.
You were. I remember. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So
You
I was
remember?
like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I met you there. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. I
yeah,
remember. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I was like, I kind of knew. I thought I said my dad, you know, the classic, you know, just basically just forwarding on everything. Anytime when I think there's but I'm trying to get to the point really, which is I think there's a few people, especially who rode the crest of the wave of kind of like social media and really took it on board and took a few risks. And you know the notion of viral, and I think you yourself became one of those people who was actually really straight talking, relate to any generation, had that comedic effect, had that humor one, and it still had the conviction of the actual message within there. And I remember when you had your and I actually watched it for this again, which when you had your health issue, and you know it was a
Yeah.
20-minute.
When I had my heart attack. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
this yeah it is. And when you came across and do that, did you get the feedback from that? You know, your experience of saying that you've been on this TV, the radio, you've been on different formats. The response back to that video, you know, how was it? Because I was always trying to find up the follow up video for that because I think you were saying at the time you were going to do several about
Yeah.
it. You know, what was that like?
I'll tell you how that happened. Yeah. I'll tell you how the whole scenario happened. Um, I came home on a Tuesday, like it is today, from West
Yeah,
Brom, and there's a jacket potato stand at West Brom in the town centre. Everyone knows where it is. If not,
yeah,
you
yeah,
should check
yeah.
it out.
But yeah, you be careful what you're
Not
eating
his
there.
fault. Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, not his fault. I had
That's
a
what
jacket
caused it.
potato, right, with cheese and beans. And I came home Tuesday night and I just felt, as if the food sits there on your chest and it hasn't digested properly. And I thought, all right, it just hasn't digested. So then the next morning I got up and I thought, I know why it hasn't digested. You haven't been to the gym for about like 3 weeks, So I picked my saman up, went to the gym, did a 5K run, had a sauna and a steam, felt better. And I thought, yeah, this is much better. But Wednesday evening, I came back and had the same sort of feeling. And I told mum, and as mums do, their large to everything is, we're
Mm.
going to Jabila, have a cup of tea. And I thought, what? And I thought, you're right, okay, I'll have a cup of tea. In the morning on Thursdays, I do the school runs. So just as I
Yeah.
was about to drop my daughter off, um, I said to my mum, I said, my mum actually said to me, she goes, you still got that chest sort of a pain thing, that acid sort of thing. And I said, yeah, I think it's acid. She goes, why don't you go to hospital? And it's a Thursday morning, no one's going to be there. You'll be out by a couple of hours. So I thought, that's all right. Dropped my daughter off, drove into the hospital, fit as a fiddle. I said, I've got a bit of acid and a bit of chest pain. And they go, all right, we'll put you in a machine. They put me on an ECG. They said, no, it looks all right. It's probably just acid, but because you said chest pain, we've got to do your bloods. When the bloods came back in about half an hour, and I was laying there, I could see everything was kicking off.
Mm.
And they started mentioning a few words, and I started Googling them. And then I said, what's the matter? They go, there's something wrong with your heart. And I said, well, you better fix it because I've got to pick my daughter up at 2:30. They said, sit down, son. You ain't going nowhere. You're having a heart attack and you've been having one for 2 days. If you hadn't walked in today and given it 12 hours, you would have been like laying down, collapsed in the street somewhere. And as soon as they said that, I didn't know what to think. I just thought I was going to die. I thought I was going to die. I phoned my dad. I phoned my mum. I said, fucking, this is what's going on. Pardon the language. I said, this is
It's all
what's
right.
going on, Anna. I said, I'm having a heart attack. I think I'm going to die. And they said, we've got to take you into surgery now. Now. Mate, I'm not joking. My world turned to zero. Yeah. At that time, I had a 1-year-old
Mm.
and a 6-year-old. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So my world was turned to zero. All I could think about, and my only prayer, I remember I was on the operating table, was like, Rabba, let me see the sunrise tomorrow. Let me see that. My mum was in pieces. So I tried to before I went into operation, I tried to WhatsApp my mum, and I WhatsApped her on video, and I couldn't get any words out because I didn't know what to say. So I just looked at her and started crying, and she just looked at me and started crying. And I remember for about 10 minutes, we just looked at each other and crying without saying anything. Then I had to turn the phone off. And that was the hardest conversation I've ever had without having even said a word.
Mm.
So luckily for me, I was saved. And it was then when I was in hospital and the day I was getting discharged that I made that video because I had had all of that pressure on me, all of these thoughts. Believe me, hospital on your own is a lot of time to think. You have a lot of time to think about your life and reevaluate your life. And I made that video and I thought, you know what? I've got to tell all of these lads out there who are going to the pub regularly, who are carbying, like I've done, or not or neglecting their health, or thinking, don't worry about it, who are perhaps in their 30s and 40s, and we're not 21 anymore, and we're not working out or doing whatever. I've got to tell them, look, that this has happened to me. You need to watch yourselves, and that's exactly what I did. I did not plan that. It was off the cuff. Just as I was about to leave, I got someone to hold my phone, and they recorded the interview, and I just did it, and I just put it out there, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just going to put it out there. But the response was amazing. It was like amazing. And I'm like the response was, thank God for your honesty. I remember a week after I started getting messages from people saying, thanks, your video saved our dad's life. And I'm like, what do you mean saved our dad's life? One said he was coming home from a wedding. A guy was coming home from a wedding, and his dad said, mera chest pain ya hunda. And he goes, all I remembered was what happened in your video. And he goes, I took him straight to Bristol Hospital. And he goes, they said, look, you know, you're having a heart attack, you need to be stented straight away. So they stented him, and he goes, you literally saved um, my dad's life. And I had about 4 or 5 um, messages like that. I also had messages from people who said, you know what, you're lucky. My brother went to hospital with the same thing, but he died in the waiting room while waiting to be seen. Now, or, like my dad went to sleep and he never woke up and he had exactly what you did. So it was two like ends of the spectrum, and the response was amazing. But at the end of the day, what I just said was the truth. That's what happened to me, and I just don't want that happening to anyone else, especially people who've got young kids. And it really, that really shook me, and it really sort of got me to think about myself, and also got me to like sit down with people and talk to them as well. I say to a lot of people, look, we need to calm our stuff down, man. We need to calm our shit down, and we need to know that. You might remember something, and I said the video. I said, people always say, always say, what will you do for your kids? And you say, you know what, I'd die for my kids. I'd take a bullet for my kids. But I realized that day, I don't want to die for my kids. I want to live for them. I want to live. I want to be around. I want to see them. Why would you want to die for my kids when you got a choice to live for them? So this is what I do now. I live for my kids. I try and keep healthy. This lockdown hasn't been good, but the other two were quite good. But
Yeah.
the weather stops you going out and walking and stuff like that. But yeah, I'll be back by the summer in good shape, and hopefully, and just tell everyone, just look after yourself, man, because it literally was a drop dead moment. Imagine you as you are now, and you just walk in with a gas, yeah, and they say, Baya, you're having a heart attack. You could be dead in 12 hours, or you might not come out of this surgery alive. I had to sign all the paperwork that you sign that, before you have an operation, that if I die and blah, blah, blah. And my kids were at school. I never got to even see my kids. And the worst part, I remember the worst day after my operation was when my daughter Cushy came to see me in hospital, and I had 20 tubes sticking out of my body. And that was a day after the operation, and I couldn't even talk properly. I was groggy. I had tubes in my mouth. And she looked at me and she said, I need to go. I don't want to be here. It's only like a 6-year-old saying, I don't. And I realized that I was a hero, and no one can see their hero like that, battered and at death's door. So that really, really shook me up mentally. That really shook me mentally. And then after I made the video, I thought I have to get all of these feelings out of my system before they stay with me, and I'd start developing mental health issues. And so I did that video, and that video for me was my outlet of getting it all out of my system.
I think it was. I think you probably get it now, especially when there's a really you know, when you get a video, if you get it in different WhatsApp groups, you know it's doing the rounds. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, yeah. I get them sent
and
to
even
me.
yeah, yeah, that's it. You know, look at this
I get
geezer.
my own. I get my own video sent to me saying, "Budgie, have you seen this?" And I think, "Of course I've seen it. I made it. I've done it. I made it." No, watch it properly. And I'm like, "What are you guys on?"
Yeah, because normally you'll get somebody who crack a joke on. You know, you have certain
Yeah.
WhatsApp groups which are funny, and stuff, but it was deadly serious. And I think, I think it was at that point that you know people kind of. There's two ways, isn't it, in terms of like you know hearing about it and you either put it to the side or you take action. And
Yeah.
I remember after that you started this big transformation in terms of your health and your appearance and things
Yeah.
like that. Is it? And you know, how difficult was it? I know you've got the motivation there. You well, some people even get to this stage and it still wouldn't be enough to motivate. What? How did you use that motivation to make the change?
Well, I just used that motivation to realize I've got to live longer. I
Hmm.
just realized, you know, this is what I need to do. I need to make the changes. I can't go mixed grilling every day. Before that, my lifestyle used to be, and I think everybody knew what my lifestyle used to be. I used to be out every night with singers, with artists, blah blah blah. Even with my mates, with all my, people, people who I thought were my mates at the time, but they didn't even come and see me in hospital. Even afterwards, they still haven't bothered to come and see how I am. But I used to go and eat and drink every night at a local restaurant. They love me there. They used to have lock-ins there. And then when you start eating a mixed grill, the bottle comes out. So then, you have a few drinks and it used to turn into that. And then 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just thought, you can't do this. And that just took its toll. That took its toll. And now I know what the problem is. Now I'm thinking, you know what, I can still have a good time without doing all that. I can say no. I can, because I'm doing it for my health. At the
How
at
did
the
you
bottom
how did you
line,
start? So what I mean is
I
like,
just
you
start.
know, what was your first move after you've come back home? You know
Yeah,
you've got it from there. You've
no,
obviously you've come out of the hospital, all
yeah,
these the condition.
yeah.
Your first move.
My first move was chucking out all the gum in my fridge, all the gum, the food that I had in my fridge, all the diet drinks and all that, soft drinks, chucked them all out. All the booze I locked away. Yeah, so I put all of that away. All of the fried stuff I cut out, and I just started getting some nice stuff and start eating. And it was, mate, it tasted horrible. This is a guy like who's grown up on McDonald's and KFCs and all of that, yeah. I like fast food. Yeah, I worked then in the hub of Southall where samosas, curries, naans,
Mm.
tikkas, kebabs, yeah, shole, all of this is like out of a fingertip away. I think a click of a finger, you can have it delivered to you, yeah. And so I was there, and I did all of that, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to go gym. So I went gym a lot and started running a lot, looking after myself. I got myself
Mm.
a PT. Wasn't great, but I knew the thing was I knew what to do.
Mm.
Even with someone like yourself, even with all the lads at home, we know what needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of doing it. And Sanu Pata, you know the exercises to do. They're only the basic ones, yeah. You do the weights and you do the cardio. Yeah, you know what to do, and then you don't even have to do it for 3 hours. You can do it for an hour. Yeah, and then but it, exercise is only about 20% of it. 80% is what you put in your gob of the food, and that was the hardest thing for me to control. That was the
Yeah.
hardest thing, and even now I still slip out of that, and then I have to pull myself back in. I started this thing called intermittent fasting now.
Yeah.
So where you have a window to eat in, and then you have to fast for the rest of it. Like 16 hours will be the fasting time, and then within the 8 hour window, and you can change it up. So that I find helps me control me. But the one thing I've really found hard is discipline, and it's a matter of controlling the mind. And I found that to be really hard. And that's when you find out how strong-willed you are and how weak-willed you are. And I've just been trying to toughen my mind, and I'm still on that journey, Ricky. So I'm still on that journey. My weight still balloons, and I still have get up at night thinking I don't look good, and tomorrow I'm going to start another day. Yeah. So it it's one of these ongoing battles, I think, and it's something that I have problems with, but I'm dealing with it. I've got to realize I've got to minimize the risks now. I've got to take my medicine on time. Try to cut out all the bad things that I have. I drink a lot of water.
Mm.
And so these are the sort of things that I made that was a change, really.
You said you don't look good. What did you mean? You said
I just don't. I,
was that because of TV and you were coming on there, you didn't like your appearance, or was there
nah, I
something more
just
than
felt
that?
like, yeah, I just felt like, mate, you're on TV. You don't look like a TV guy, you know. And that's
No
then I realized,
bikini.
yeah, and then I realized, yeah, that I'm not a TV guy. That's why you don't look good. You haven't spent your whole life trying to be on TV. Because if you did, you'd look like a supermodel. You'd look like Hrithik Roshan or Akshay Kumar or something. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not. I look like Amrish Puri and Shakti Kapoor because you're not a TV guy, bro. So then, but it's just some things you're happy with and some things you're not. And I just don't think I was happy with my weight at the time, and I still aren't, if I'll be totally honest with you. But there's something I can't just sit there and moan about it until I do something about it. It's not going to change. So I decided to try and do something about it, and that's what it was. And there's everyone from the outside looks as if they're perfect, they're happy, but everyone is battling their own battle somewhere. And I think for me, that is my battle to battle with my weight. But if someone else says it, I don't take that to heart. But I take my
Mm,
own criticism very seriously. So I
mm.
don't take other people's criticism very seriously because I have to value their opinion first. And the people whose opinion I value, I take their criticism on board. But I always have a thing about, don't take constructive criticism from people who haven't constructed anything.
Fair
So
point.
for me, it's like, and I'm sure you get it as well. We all get it at some point in our life. We get people who try and criticize what we do without knowing us, without following our work, without knowing what we do. And you look at it, and at first, I remember when I did my first TV shows, I
Mm.
used to read all the comments on YouTube, you know, and it used to bug me. And I used to keep me up at night. Eh, banda kya kidda gaya that this thing, and he doesn't even know, and these people saying that. Then I realized, Harjap, you've got to ignore this. And you have got to ignore this because this will get inside your head. So ever since that, I've ignored it and I take constructive criticism on board, from intelligent people, from guys who I know have no malice. Yeah. But the hate filled stuff, I just ignored it. And to be honest, if you ignore it, it just goes away. People get bored of that. The trolls with no faces, no names, no followers. Like, it's like, bro, who are you tweeting that to? Like, 3 followers. Yeah, is that it? So I just don't really take that criticism on board anymore. Now I've decided it's much easier to use the block and delete button. That's what it's there for. So I didn't know, at first I never used it, and now I use it all the time. And I don't. To be fair, I don't get a chance to use it now because I think people know that if we're going to try it on with him, they're going to get it back. So they're like, okay, he's going to get it back. And plus, the way I see it is like, okay, so if someone says to me, "Oh, I don't like you. I don't like this. I don't like what you said," and I said, "But your mum and dad's there. Like, ask them who do they like her job." I'll tell you once what happened to me at a wedding. So I went to a wedding, and this guy come up to me, and he goes, ਭਾਈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਥੋੜਾ ਜਿਹਾ ਰੂਡ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹਨਾ ਇਦਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ ਸਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੋਲਦੇ yeah guy said that to me. Yeah. I said, oh, sorry ਭਾਈ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਾ. His wife comes running over. She goes, ਭਾਜੀ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਛੱਡੋ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਫੋਟੋ ਖਿਚਾਓ. She goes, ਇਹਦਾ ਤਾਂ ਕੰਮ ਹੀ ਇਹੀ ਆ. And I looked at him and I said, ਵੀਰੇ what can I do on ਭੈਣ ਜੀ ਜੋ ਕਹਿੰਦੀ ਉਹ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ. So his whole family took a photo. His mum and dad were so happy to meet me. And then obviously I didn't recite that in front of his mum and dad, but I just looked at him and I said, really, bro? And I said, ਜੇ ਤੈਨੂੰ ਚੰਗਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਤੂੰ ਨਾ ਦੇਖਿਆ ਕਰ. No one forces you to. And so that's just the way it is. I think I'm like, I know I'm loved by a lot of elders because I do look out for them. And I live with my parents and I imagine them to be like myself. A lot of the kids love me and youngsters love me because I think they just love my one-liners and they just watch it for the comedy issue. And a lot of people like yourself love me because for some reason you lot think I talk sense and I'm balanced and the way I say things I think takes an edge off what I say. At the same time, I get my message across, and you'll always remember it.
Yeah.
So
I think the
That's just the
face
way it is,
mask
right?
one, the face mask one.
Yeah,
Uh, you know, you know when you hit a chord, if you got females sending it around, do you know what I mean? Where it's I thought,
yeah,
oh my god, because I at the time I was quite heavily involved in sort of all that COVID, with the whole COVID kind of dissemination of
of course.
information and stuff,
Yeah,
and then you know, there was a real gap in terms of getting information to South Asian communities just in general. I think
yeah,
when you started doing that translation stuff, it was just
yeah,
such we were. I think we need to take a real good look in terms of our anchors, and what I mean by anchors are those support networks, those support individuals who are creditable in the community. When if there's a topic that you know you're going to get the correct information, and I think when you look around it and you see some of the same characters who people were using, and you're just like, look, I don't really rate that person. I
trust
don't
this
really
guy.
care.
Yeah,
Blah de blah. I think when you started it, it made it a lot easier to send that information out because you were speaking directly to those elders.
yeah. I think I started saying that in March. So I remember I came back from India and I saw how at India airport they were very prepared, but at the UK they just welcomed me with open arms, and I thought this is going to get bad. And so as soon as the numbers started going up in the deaths, I just realized, look, we need to keep our elders safe. And then I realized the elders weren't listening. So all the messages I got from people like our age were like, my mum and dad won't listen. They don't listen, Harjap. You got to say something. You're the guy that they listen to on a Friday. So then I started saying something and I did a few videos. I don't see the face mask one. But every week since then, I've replaced my immigration show with 80% of COVID information about what's happening. About even last week, the week before, I just did the whole roadmap and this is how it's going and, stay safe. And I think the feedback I got from people was like, um, thanks, Harjap, because you got through to our parents when perhaps we couldn't, and that you actually got through to them and they sat there and listened to you the way you explained it. And I think I've just got that rapport with people's parents. And also, I'm blessed because I don't see them as like my audience. Those same parents have been watching my show for 13 years, since
Mm.
2007. They know who Harjap is, whether Harjap's credible or not. Anyone who's not that credible cannot last in the Asian community for 13 years on a Friday night. People call you out, especially on a live calling program where you
Mm.
open the lines and you don't know what's going to be said next. We've heard it. We've seen people called out and on social media. So, yeah, I'm blessed in that way. So even the controversial topics, like say COVID, I covered and I started translating and I started telling people, look, this is what it is, and this is how it is in my sort of unique style with a bit of humor added in, as I always do. And that's just a mechanism I use to get the message through. Because if
Why
you
did
start
why did
sitting there,
why didn't you think the
well,
message got through?
I just don't think that one, our people took it seriously. Two, it was all covert. No one really knew anyone who died. And
Mm.
until about May, June, then when people started saying, oh, someone on my streets died, and then someone on my next door neighbors died, or my friends died. Like I know elders now who say, Mere sare friend mar gaye, and I'm the only one left. And I think until that happens, people don't take it seriously. They're more happy, like, oh, and there was also a bit about they thought that Asian community was immune.
Yeah,
है ना? आपा
the
सांस
Haldi.
लेंगे खाने
Yeah,
आपको
that's
बनने
it.
ये yeah. And even to some point, I remember one person doing a video, and he said, "This is the vaccination for corona," and he drank a bottle. Do you remember that video? Some guy in Australia, and he drank
Yeah.
a bottle,
Just
and he goes,
drank and he.
and he got and he just drank it, and he sat it down, and I don't even know if he's still alive, but
Yeah.
the fact was, alcohol weakens that immune system. We know that. And we know that Asians are the most at risk with corona, right? Our community. So the total information that
Our
was being
body
distributed.
types are the worst. The body
Yeah,
type is the word for diabetes, heart disease,
yeah, you know that.
dementia, everything from it. And when this comes along, I think that's what annoyed me the most, really, which was they identified in terms of like the BAME communities are the ones that are the most at risk.
Yeah,
And then there wasn't that much information that was coming out to try and, in that engagement format. You know what I mean?
It's all it's
in your
also
style,
Ricky.
basically.
No, but you're right, because they didn't get the right people to give the information out. And even now, I was just seeing a video recently, yeah, of people they've got from the Asian community who they claim to be celebrities, and who probably are if I look at them. But if I showed that to my dad or your dad, they won't know who none of them are. They don't know who all these guys are, like a film director is, or someone on a mainstream radio presenter is, or someone who presents on IEV at daytime when it is, because they're not listening to them and they're not watching them. Apne people watch the Desi channels, and there's a lot to be said. But even on the Desi channels, there wasn't much information. Unfortunately, a lot of our Desi channels have just turned into channels to beg for funds for some reason or another, for some appeal or another, or to keep them running. Even our radio stations, 24 ਘੰਟੇ ਪੈਸੇ ਹੀ ਮੰਗਦੇ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਆਪਾਂ ਮਰਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਆ, ਬੰਦ ਹੋਣ ਲੱਗੇ ਆ, ਪੈਸੇ ਦਿਓ, ਪੈਸੇ ਦਿਓ, ਪੈਸੇ ਦਿਓ, and whereas really what they're there for is information, and you should be providing information to the public and with credible faces. So I don't think that actually happened and went about. So that was one of the main reasons. But I was so glad that afterwards, and recently, a lot of doctors and nurses started making their own videos, independent of the NHS. And I featured a lot of them on my show and gave them a lot of platform. Dr. Carter, I did Carter in English, Qatar as I call him.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah. And right, I thought Dr. Carter, here we go. This is a guy who's going to talk totally English and going to ruin it. Actually, he was one of the most disiest doctors I've ever seen. And he was proper, he gave it proper to everyone. And so Dr. Qatar, Dr. Sahota from Southall, Dr. Sahota from Gravesend, we had Nisha, who's a nurse from Bedford. So I had a lot of people, Sarabjit from Leeds, who runs the Elders Service. So there is actually a lot of people out there doing the independent thing. But what happens is they just need a collative platform. And I think because something you stressed on earlier, that people see me as the guy who bridges that generation gap. So I talk with people our age. I can mix it with the youngsters. And at the elders, I can sit there with the BBI and just chat there all day. In fact, I spend most weddings doing that. So at the weddings, when I walk in, the BBI like, Harjap, and I'm like, okay, because this is what I really came to a wedding to do. But don't worry, I won't let you down. I'll listen to what your daughter-in-law's, the grief she's giving you.
I remember seeing
you at a gig. Listen to her grief.
I remember seeing you at a gig once in the toilets, and there must have been about 3 people around you huddling, asking you a case. They were going for a case, immigration case, and it was awkward because you got people obviously doing their business and trying to shake your hand at the same time, and I mean, you must get that all the time.
Yeah, I think I told my story once. Look, that I was in the toilet, and I think all I remember was I got a tap on the back, and I'm doing my stuff, holding my, and enjoying myself or leaving myself. Yeah. So in a Peshab sort of way, right? So I tap on the shoulder. I've looked round, and he's gone to see Harjap, and he goes, "Bhai, mari gal karni si." And I said, "Listen, salah leni si." And I said, "Listen, my advice at the moment is this: you need to stand back, son. नहीं तो जे मैं मुड़ पे तेरे शिट्टे पे जाने शू थे तो बच्चे मेरे तो शू खराब हो जाने. There's a time and a place." Another event, I remember I went to a wedding in Leamington, and I'm sitting with everyone on a table just about to have my roti, and someone comes up and goes, "Sat Shri Akal Japa ji," and Sat Shri Akal. He goes, "Mainu pata laga tusi itthe auna." And I said, "Oh, that's good." And he goes, "Mari file dekhiyo ta," and he pulled out a 300-page file and put it on the desk, and everyone at that table just looked at me like, "Does this happen to you a lot?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Veere, main bya khana hai, isi teri file." And he goes, "Nahi, bas mari padh lo." 300 pages, right next to my roti plate. And I'm like, "Look, very country office. This ain't the time or place of it." So it's just part of life now. Being harassed.
It's that desi etiquette, isn't it? It's just.
What can you do? We're part of it. So yeah, any doctor out there who's listening to this, I feel your pain. Because at weddings, it just must be all about good day and mode and konia and sugar and Maria, apo to check kari meri blood pressure.
Well, I remember a stage when my bibi used to tell me that when she used to go Gordona, the bibi at the back of the hall, they used to exchange what goalie are they on, and if they've got a knee problem, they used to say, "Oh, go to your doctors." So she would go to the doctors and say, "Flanne, flanne, she's got this pink goalie. Why haven't I got it? What's that one?" And then it was. I used to think, and there was no data on this, but I remember having an anecdotal conversation with a GP, thinking that a lot of the elders don't die because they die from overdose. They don't. They have so many golia that they just get this. You tell me how many goalie, how many Bibian do you know who go to the doctors and say, "Can you stop this goalie, please?"
Nah, I don't know any.
This.
We go to a doctor's to get an enlarge, which we think is via a goalie. So we don't think that what in the Asian community, once you're on a tablet, that that's it, you live for life, mate.
But that's what I don't understand. Yeah, sorry.
And that goes for anything. Like, so imagine you get the homeopathic medicines as well.
Yeah.
So people take them for life. And they don't think that there's a limit on these.
How the only roti works though?
Yeah. Harjamullah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the take up within the Asian communities are still good. And do you remember? I don't know when people used to go to India and anyone get ill, they used to just get a tika. I didn't understand. They've got, look, here's COVID. We've got an injection for you. We come from a medicalized model. We should be. I thought people would be running to the centers to get vaccinated.
I think the take up now is good, but I think
it's good. I think it's good. Yeah.
I think that's a bit of a false flag to say that now the take up isn't good. I think it's quite good, and I think what's happened is you remember that when my dad had his tika, I made a video.
That was a good video,
and I put that out, and I said, look, and then I put one a week out saying you're still alive, but I got wicked 5G reception, and I got free internet for life now. When I put my phone next to him, I didn't So it was like playing on that really, and I said, look, nothing happened to him, and I think as people went and got the injection, and people realised that it's not bad, and I always say, I said, I've never heard of anyone who's died after having a vaccination, and believe me, until I started doing these videos, I didn't realise how many anti-vaxxers there are in our community. And it's not the elders who are anti-vaxxers, it's people like mine and your age who are anti-vaxxers who are saying, I'm not sending my mum for an injection. I'm not sending my mum for an injection. And they all said, do you know what the side effects of the vaccine is? I said, I don't know about the side effects of the vaccine, but I know what the side effects of COVID is, and that's death. And the side effects of a vaccine isn't death. I don't know anyone who's died of having a vaccine, but I can tell you 120,000 people who have died of COVID. So I said, that's the choice you've got. And good luck to you if you're going to make that. First of all, you don't have a right to make that on behalf of your parents. You should be the one informing them. And you're sitting there at home, filling their heads with all these unsubstantiated claims and all these theories that miraculously you've spotted. And the world's best top doctors and scientists and press hasn't spotted a single case. But tu apne phone te back on the toilet with your pant down your ankles have managed to do your research and find this, where someone in a lab who spent their whole life studying medicine has not found this. And I said, well, you got a superpower, my friend.
I tell you what, one of the things that I found, my mum's a nurse, and what she found out was, and it was a hearing about, what I should say, was that kids telling their parents not to have it, and then the parents secretly having the injection, having the appointment, and getting it done.
Because they thought no,
they'll be like they'll be after the Jameen in it, basically. You can't have that conversation.
No, I'm telling you, they'll be like, नहीं मम्मी ठीक है हमारी साइन कर दें पर कागज है ना हमारी द कल की पता कल की हो ਜਾਂਦਾ कल की पता हमारी what is it, but why does this form say TR1 transfer of property on it, and why is it said to B giving it to you? What happened? We can imagine how much of that has gone on over the past year or so. But
I
yeah,
think
I'm in the power of
it,
to sign their bank account that's their account. Like, yeah, we say that as a laugh, but I'm sure some of that did go on. But yeah, if you was a kid, why wouldn't you want your parent protected from
I,
COVID?
I, I think this last year has opened, a lot of eyes to a lot of priorities, to not just priorities of
Yeah,
what people want to do in their life in it, which is, it has been one of the silver linings or one of the positive things from there. I know you mentioned about the weight being an issue in lockdown 3, let's call it, but lockdown 1,
yeah,
2. What was some of
yeah.
the things that you learned about yourself, especially in the last year? I mean, you're 46 next month or something like that.
46 next month. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
46
yeah,
next month.
46 next month.
One.
So go on.
Oh, I learned a lot of stuff. I'm done with this year. So right, first thing I
Don't
learned
worry,
was
man. We're here for days. Don't worry about it.
first thing I learned was I don't spend as much time with my kids as I should. Yeah, and now that I have, now I can see that I've built such a good bond with them that they miss me. They probably won't let me stay out overnight anywhere. So that I've that these bonds are created over time. The reason we don't have good relationship with our parents is we don't spend that much time with them. The reason we fall out of sync with our other halves and our kids is we don't spend that much time with them. We're so busy, stressed out with other stuff. And I think that was such a good thing, just to walk in the park with my kids, just to kick a ball around in the back garden. I've never done that. Just to go for a walk in on the street with my kids and my family and my mum. I'd never done that. So one, that thing I learned. Secondly, I learned that you can't get time back, Ricky. There was I was sitting there thinking, if I said to Ricky, if I said to you, right, Rick, £5 lakh, give me my last 5 years back of my time. Could you do it? No one can do it. And I thought there's no value on that. Time has no value. So we've got to use that wisely. Look at how much time we waste thinking about what others think, what others' opinions are, about other people's problems, yeah, about our work related stuff, even when we're off work and we come home. Yeah. So people who have no value in our lives or bring nothing to the table in our lives, we worry about their opinions. When we could spend that positively with our family, educating our kids. I spent a lot of time homeschooling, and I'm telling you, it's the hardest job in the world. Being a mum
Oh,
is
is
the
it?
hardest job in the world. I used to muck around with my wife and say, I used to laugh and taunt her and say, you know what? Why don't you go to work? Because she used to be a teacher. And I'd love to sit and just watch cartoons and Paw Patrol all day. And she goes, is that what you think my life entails? And I said, yeah, probably. And I did before lockdown. Oh my God, mate. So I'm like, I can't handle this. The homeschooling
Mm.
was a lot. I learned more about through my daughter's homeschooling last year than I'd learned at my proper school. So I learned a bit of Spanish. I learned a bit about the Mayans. I learned all about this, about what they're teaching at school, like all the English books that she was reading. And I was like, this is some proper stuff. How comes, that
Yeah.
I don't remember learning any of this at school. So it was like I learned a lot of stuff, and I learned a lot about how much we in our life just go through it without really thinking about it, without really concentrating about ourselves. We don't take time for ourselves, Ricky. अपने बारे नहीं सोचते. An Asian family household member's life is about sacrifice. It's about sacrifice. If you're a woman, you sacrifice your life trying to please your parents in servitude. Then you're told you have to go to your husband and please him and his mum and dad. Then you pleasing your kids. There's no time left for you. As a dad and as a guy, yeah, you're pleasing your mum and dad by making the dreams coming true. Yeah, you're trying to do your work, trying to do that. Then you're earning a living, or you try to earn a living, Hannah. And then we just this is chain. And I don't know if it's just Asian households, but I'm just like, have you sat down and actually enjoyed yourself, had fun? And when I sit down to a lot of guys, I'm like, what's your idea of enjoying yourself? They go, oh, I'll go to the pub and have a few drinks. And I'm like, that's not really enjoyment. That's become a ritual. Hannah, we do that as a ritual every
Mm.
Friday. Go to the pub, have a mixed grill, have a few drinks. You do the same thing every Friday, and does that makes you feel better? Like, and that's not really, you're not exploring the world. You're not going out there and doing anything. You're not doing anything different. You're not doing anything life changing. You're just doing a ritual. So I think that's a lot of
You know
stuff.
those conversations that you were just talking about at the pub. I was thinking
Yeah,
about it myself actually, which was I think I heard it and so apologies if I'm stealing it from somebody subconsciously. But
yeah,
there was like you could get yourself into a stage where you're sitting at the pub and you're always talking about what you used to do. Rather than
yeah,
thinking, look, we're at this stage in life and we could be thinking like this is what I've just done last week.
yeah,
I remember, you got a few friends who always, you'd bring up the same stories all the time. And you're thinking, hang on, we've got another 40 years of material here.
yeah, yeah.
You need to start exploring exploring those things. And I think, this whole cycle is coming around. And uh, even a few of my stronger mates, in terms of like, you kind of look up to, they've got this fear of anxiety of what the future's going to look like. Do you have a sense of that, or in your inner circle with your mates and that, any of those feelings coming through?
Sometimes when I see the racism in this country, when I see how people are treated, people of color are treated, when I see the underhand sly racism, that does get me down. And at one stage, I even thought of leaving for Canada. And I was so close before my heart attack putting an application in. But then, don't know, I was meant to just stay here, and I just didn't bother in the end. But I think, I do worry. Everyone worries. It's normal to worry. It's normal to be anxious. It's normal. Yeah. There's no one out there who can say they haven't worried about anything. And that is part of life. It's part of their genetic makeup. But you've got to realize there's only so much things that you can control. Yeah. First of all, you can't control stuff after you're dead. We love to think we can as humans, right? And as Asians, even worse. We like to think we can control what our grandchildren are going to do. So
Mm.
we're sitting there having conversations about, मैं नहीं अपने मुंडे ਨੂੰ ਉੱਥੇ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰਨ ਦੇਣਾ ਤੇ ਤੇਰੇ ਮੁੰਡੇ ਨੇ ਜਦੋਂ ਵਿਆਹ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਤਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੂੰ ਜਿੰਦਾ ਹੋਣਾ, or you might be in a wheelchair, I might be unable to talk. No one's going to sit and ask you, sunshine. Right? That's the first thing, right? Then we talk
That's
about,
Prince
no,
Harry.
ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਪੋਤੇ ਨੂੰ ਏਦਾਂ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ, ਐਕਟਰ ਬਣਾਉਣਾ ਤੇ ਵੀਰੇ, you're going to be in your grave. You're not even going to be in a grave. ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਲੂ ਦੇਣਾ ਆ. We're going to be in a river somewhere. Yeah, our teeth will be. Yeah, and the rest of our body is going to be burnt like Nando's. I don't know if you've ever been to a funeral in India,
Yeah.
but I
Oh,
have. Right, and what they do
I'll
is
leave
they
that there.
roast you, mate. Yeah, and then they flip you over, and they make sure you're done properly, like a proper well done chicken. So we try and control things that are out of our control. When you realize that the universe is going to do what it's going to do, and there's only so much in your control, then you begin to stop worrying about these things, and then you begin to start believing the process. So upon we can only sort of guide people and give our views, and we should stop trying to control everything. We're such control freaks, Asians are, and we try and control everything, worry about every little thing. Peter's right to get anxious, but don't get anxious over stuff you can't control. What's the point of that? And don't try and control too much in your life. We don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I've got a plan. That doesn't mean I don't plan, but I don't know. I've just told you the story of my heart attack. I went to drop my
Yeah.
kids off at school, and I ended up staying in hospital for 2 weeks. Thought I was going to die, and so that's how much of in control of my life I am. I'm not in control at all. So I probably just trust the process, try and be good people, try and make our kids into good people, and that's it. And try and pass our legacies our parents gave to us, the good parts of them, onto our kids, because we've got to realize that everything our parents have given to us, not all of that is good. We carry a lot of baggage from our culture over, from our teachings over, and we've got to realize that some of that's going to work here and some of that isn't. So it's tried and tested. We've got to make our own legacies to pass on to our kids. And you know what my successful life will be? If after I die, Japan Bande go, that guy, he was all right, he was. Teeks even though. That's it. That's all we can hope for. Even then, not everyone will say it, and that's cool as well. It doesn't bother me. Like I said, I'm dead. I'm roasted. My teeth are floating down a river in India somewhere.
No, I don't really want to think about your teeth down the river at this stage of that. You know, we've got you here for a good while. We're going to try our best to keep you there. You know, it
No
is
problem.
like I think you made a really good point there in terms of like the stereotypes and the whole culture. There's battles between religion and culture,
Yeah, of
and the
course.
culture not just even but within the Asian communities, but even regionally where you live.
Yeah, of course.
London, Birmingham, it's completely different in some aspect.
Yeah, of course it is.
Do
Yeah.
you feel like I kind of feel this that the whole wedding industry sort of like just it died, didn't it?
Yeah.
And what was interesting was when people were all automatically turning around and saying, "I'm not going to have a reception now. I'm just going to cancel the wedding, have it in our garage, and then buy a house." And
Yeah.
I was actually speaking to one of my mates again. I've got quite a lot of mates, and they were talking about how it's acted as a catalyst. Like this is knocked off like 5 to 10 years. Potentially, if people don't go and revert back to what it used to be, a lot of those stereotypes, some of those traditions, those needless traditions are going to be kind of thrown out. Do you think we're at that point, or do you think that's more kind of wishful thinking?
I think there are a lot of people now who've had the COVID weddings, and I thought, it hasn't really made much of a difference because no one's had their wedding. I think there's a lot of people holding off to have a party, and
No,
I
but I'll
think
tell you now, nobody has an anniversary party anymore. Remember, it used to be back. That used to be the rage back in the
yeah,
day,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
no one's gonna do that.
That's because they've realised what they've done by getting married. And they go, भाई दुख नु कोई celebrate नहीं करता दुख ते कोई नहीं भंगड़ा पाता. What are you celebrating? I've been married 10 years. Oh my god, what?
And then they're gonna phone you for another bikini in it. They're gonna say, "Forget the immigration one. I need the other one."
Oh, bro, I'm gonna need a vacil if I start talking like this anymore. So, I think you're right to some extent. People have realised, look, we can put that money elsewhere, and all we were doing were people pleasing. But I was with like a lot of DJs on the weekend, and unfortunately, they feel as if there's been a big lack of sympathy for them in the Asian community, and they feel like saying, well, tough, you used to charge jar ਪੰਜ ਹਜ਼ਾਰ just for 2-3 ਘੰਟਿਆਂ ਲਈ, and ਤੁਸੀਂ stay ਦੇ ਵੀ ਪੈਸੇ ਰੱਖ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ. You were overpricing the market. The caterers were charging £80 a head. I mean, in London, some of them charge £80-100 a head. You've been to them weddings. I've been to them weddings, right? And ਉੱਥੇ ਖਾਣਾ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ like properly. In fact, the smaller the dish, the more they charge for it, right? That would make it artistic. Or instead of putting a dollop of sauce, they go spray it like a signature. They go, that'll be an extra 20 quid, please. I'm like, what? Does he sauce the right? So it's
You're still gonna have chippy on the way home anyway. That's the standard.
It's a pack of pies, right? So what you've got to think is like that. A lot of people didn't have sympathy, but a lot of them are struggling. So like DJs, caterers are struggling. They've laid off staff. That was a big industry. Wedding halls. They've got no events to hold, and they've got rents to pay. And some have gone out of business. A lot of people have gone out of business. Photographers, wedding filmmakers. I mean, I was talking to one wedding filmmaker, who's a good friend of mine, and he goes, Harjap, it's given me a chance to catch up on my last year films. Because wedding filmmakers are notorious not delivering like films on time, right? Oh, buddy, I'll give you it in a couple of months. He goes, Harjap, I felt so ashamed. One film I got, and I gave it to them 4 years after their wedding. They'd had 2 kids. I went to give them the wedding film.
Same as the anniversary. I told you.
Yeah. And it's like so. It's given people time to catch up like that, but I just think that I don't think weddings are going to be eradicated. Apne bande like to show off that they've got a bit of money. Apne bande like to please other people. People who've been to everyone else's wedding feel a sense of duty that they owe all of them a wedding. I mean, so it's a bit of lok ki kahoge, but if you've been to everyone's wedding for the last 20 years, and say it was your kid's wedding, and then you did it all chup chupite, and said, I'm a Karni party, then people are going to look at you and say, what? You cheapskate. Or, oh, well, why did you come to ours then? And ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਦੋ ਬੋਤਲਾਂ ਸ਼ਰਾਬ ਦੀਆਂ ਪੀ ਗਿਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰੀ
only put £5 PR and drink and eat about £100.
I think people have still got a bit of sense of that, and that's like maybe a bit of false pride or whatever, so there's still a sense of that, and I still have tit for tat and ਆਪਾਂ ਹਿਸਾਬ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੂਰਾ. We're very good at that. We're very good at tit for tat. as a community. So I think to write it off completely, I don't think that's going to happen. I think people are still going to have it, and it all depends if the trends pick up. I mean, then I can imagine the first few weddings that happen after all this is over are going to be brilliant. People are going to love them, and they're going to, and that might just encourage it and think, you know what, might go the other way. Might just
Yeah,
think, we want our wedding to be like that,
yeah.
and it might go the other way.
I do think the hospitality side of it, and especially some of the wedding industry, the DJs, and I think I personally felt that they got kind of penalized for being to being successful. And
I think it was a mixture of success, arrogance, forgetting where they come from in the first place. So all of these DJs now, who are big DJs, who are charging 6-7 grand, yeah, they all started off as £200-300 DJs. You know that. I know that.
I'm in an awkward situation.
Yeah, I know you're in an awkward situation, but you know me. You knew this interview. You were going to get the truth. Right. So they all did, right, and doing the same thing that they do now, but just with more screens on a bigger scale and stuff like that. So it's everyone's got a right to charge what they charge, But then what happens is when people get too big, they forget the little man, and they forget, and so. Like I said, if you're too big for your boots, some little man's there to take you, fill your boots, and make a success out of himself.
No, I think that's fine. I think what's happened is, and this is just my own theory, is that you've got successful people in any of those wedding supply industries who went in and basically professionalized the desi market. And when they got to a stage, like at the end of the day, if someone's going to hire you for being a solicitor, you're not going to be the same as what you used to be before. Well, I don't know. Yeah. So and I think that
you have to change over time, and you have to set your standard.
Yeah.
And you have to improve. But then people look at DJs a bit differently, because they look at and that you're doing the same thing that you were essentially doing. All right, you're on a bit legal, but you're just charging me now because you're more famous than what it is, or you've got a couple of tracks out.
I'll be honest with you. There'll be some people who'd say they want to book it because they've got the social media brand, or they've got the best equipment, or they've got connected to this person or that person, and ultimately it's a decision for you got to live within your means, because when it comes down to it, and you say, right, we're going to charge you. A caterer can charge X amount, and so if they can't afford it, they won't do it. And there are people out there who are going to be charging whatever. And I think it helps to bring up the whole of the system. I just feel that there's a potential kind of reset here, which I was going back before, where people say, we're in this new kind of territory. I think we'll be in a better position 12 months time, 18 months time to say, where this goes through. The nighttime economy. If you're talking about, if you're releasing a track, for example, one of the key places to play is in a club. We have no idea whether these nightclubs are, what the regulations and restrictions are going to be likely. Who's going to turn up? Are people actually comfortable going to a wedding? That's another one.
But Ricky, if it is all about releasing tracks over COVID, why hasn't there been any Bhangra dance tracks? There's been no releases. Everyone's biding their time because they realise sanu fayda nahi, kyun vyah ta hai nahi, club ta hai nahi, lokan ne Bhangra kithe pauna karan. So it's not a service anyone's doing, one. It's obviously money making.
See, I would agree with the first 6 months, and I think he's covered nicely onto the kind of on a very sensitive and topical subject was the whole Kisan movement and what's going on. And I know you've been heavily involved in that side of it, and I think it was just a sheer timing issue as well, where you've got a couple of artists who have done it. They've gone out and they've put some commercial on, but you did have
out of 5,000, you ain't gonna make a difference. It ain't cutting it. It ain't cutting it. To menu 50% that's fair up gal karte hain.
I'm gonna stay professionally.
I know, you're in the industry, and in that I'll tell you, because it's not commercially viable. That's why. That's the first thing. Secondly, the lack of Punjabi films that have come out. It's the same reason. So there's no cinemas there for people to go in, and Hollywood films, right? So they're delaying the James Bond film. They're delaying the Black Widow film because they've got to make their money. They've got to make their money back on what they spent on this stuff. So I think like with that industry, with that side of things, and the whole DJ side of things, I do feel sorry for them because a lot of them were
Mm.
employing a lot of people, and they were doing a
Yeah.
lot of training on the job. They train
It
a
was a
lot of youngsters
huge. It
up.
was a. This is the point. I think there was a huge ripple effect when you think
There
about
was.
how it affects everybody down from that one. And I think for it to be neglected, and I really do hope that we do see some of those. Some of those suppliers characters. They are characters. Some good
I love
people
them. I
involved, and
love
they
them
all
all.
come back. Yeah, you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
my best mates are DJs and Moors, and there are two things that you can request on like Facebook. I need a Moor and a DJ, and you'll get about 400 replies.
Right.
Yeah. But if you say, oh, I need a ice cream wala to entertain or an entertainer for the kids, koi nahi jawab aunda.
Yeah.
But so
You get
what you
you'll get
so
someone's
but so
massive.
yeah. So what happens is this like industry, and I know it's affected the makeup artists as well, and it's affected
Yeah.
them and all of them women. I tell you what I want to see. So I tell you what I want to see. I want to say weddings go back to the 80s and the early 90s with the school halls, the long tables, the paper sheet over the tables, the plastic lick up, the
Yeah.
girls' brothers, cousins doing the siva. Yeah, the Desi live band, the school hall, none of the showbiz and none of
And
all this.
the balloons as the arch on the dance floor.
That's it, man. But the only thing bad about those weddings were when I remember my first wedding, women weren't allowed on the Janet. So it was just blokes. And that I found, now I look back and I think I found that obviously chauvinistic, sexist. And, times have changed. Now, all you see on the dance floor are women and you see Jar Shabby when they're dancing in the corner. But at that time, it just used to be blokes. And I think that bit has been a great positive change about about new weddings. But yeah, I'll say bring it back to basics, man. I quite liked it. The Coke bottles there, the full ones on the table, all of that, the beer coming in plastic glasses. And
Crisps.
yeah,
Crisps is gone. When you used to have Walker's crisps, exactly. You used to send a little kid, go and get me some cheese and onion from that table. Bring it over.
also like Golden Wonder even this
That's
Golden
it.
Wonder crisp.
What was
And
it?
the
Five
Moongfali
Alive. Five Alive. The juice.
5 Alive juice, yeah. 5 Alive.
Killing it.
5 Alive Umbungo and all of that sort of stuff. So all of that, yeah, I like them. I like them times because them weddings had a homely feel.
Yeah.
Nowadays weddings have a commercial feel. As soon as you walk in,
That's fair.
everyone's looking at what you're wearing, what you got on your wrist. Yeah, everyone's looking at Aki paya, है ना कपड़े केड़े पाए हो आउं सूट केड़ा पाया ऐदा केड़े पाए हो. In those days, mate, you could turn up like चार बटन खुले, or someone would have the Jenny showing up, but you could turn up to चार बटन खुले, someone would bust out some white shoes, and respect to the guys who used to wear white shoes. Yeah, respect to them, they were the dons, right? But you knew they were the playboys. but
this geezer, that geezer.
That's it, man. That's it,
Mr. Montana.
So respect to that then, like where the women used to make the food the night before, the guys used to make the meat. I know it's very stereotypical, but those weddings were with love, and if something went wrong, everyone was stood up to fix it. It wasn't like, oh, look at Tamasha and laugh at them, or they've had a mistake at their wedding. There wasn't that much pressure, mate, on in them days. It was like
it was shared. It was shared.
Yeah, it was shared. The whole responsibility was shared. And there weren't these overinflated prices that you see now. People spending 150 grand on a wedding. Mate, I don't want you to spend 150 grand just for me to have fun for 3 hours. I'd rather you spend that on a house. I can have fun with a £12 bottle and a phone. And I'll stick that on with a speaker. And I'll have the same amount of fun as I'm dancing to your 150 grand wedding. I don't want a person feeling pressurized who spent his whole life working on a foundry or working like that. He's got 3 daughters. On the building sort of where am I going to get 3-4 lakh pound from? Yeah, and that be a heart attack on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I feel like having one now. Thinking about it.
That's the Jackie potato.
Yeah, mate. No potato there. What the potato bunny on a mashed potato when you hear this how much money. But yeah, the pressures we put as a community are not good. But once again, if you've got the money, then who am I to stop? Who am I to, or who's anyone to stop you spending it? Go for it, but just don't expect everyone else to go along with it. Everyone's free to do what they want, man, without judgment. We as a community need to stop judging each other, and I think that's more important. We need to stop kitching each other's litter. We need to stop. We need to start supporting each other and say, you know what, you don't want a wedding, that's fine. And my blessings are still with you. I'm not going to backbite you. I'm not going to bitch about you. You want a great wedding? Have one, mate. I'll come along and enjoy it and drink your mengi sharab and eat your chicken tikka with the sauce where it's scribbled on instead of dolloped on. Happy days, my friend. You know. But either way, from someone like me, I'm happy whatever you do. But so I've gone past that stage. As you
Mm.
mature, Ricky,
Yeah.
every year you said one of the things you learned in lockdown. One of the things I learned in lockdown was every year I learn, and there's a lot to learn. And if I think I've learned everything, I haven't. I'm still learning every day. I learn a lot of stuff every day, and every year I grow maturer. I look back at myself as a 21-year-old, and I feel ashamed of some of the views that I held then and the way that I acted. And I feel ashamed when I got to, I feel ashamed now of some of the things that I used to think about when I was 5 years ago and
Yeah.
like 10 years ago. So life is about growth. If the day you stop growing is the day you stop living. So life is about growth, not physical, but mental. You grow and grow and grow until the day you die. That's how it should be. You should learn and grow, and you should be changing your views. If your views now, at the age of 45, are still the same as you were when you were 21, you have wasted them 24 years. That's what I will say. You've wasted that because you've learned nothing and you've grown nothing. And it's okay to admit you were wrong. It's okay to admit that your thinking was wrong and that you were backward or you were brainwashed in certain areas or you were influenced, wrongly influenced. It's okay. But what's not okay is to know that that was the case and still stick with it. So as long as you're making an effort to change and eradicate all the wrong sort of things you perceive to be in your life and try and become a better person, mate, you're growing, and that's all good.
I mean, you come across in terms of, you got a very strong ethical values, a very strong moral compass. You talked about that, getting that community feel back as well. I just want to touch back on the Kassan thing and,
Yeah, no, definitely.
just your thoughts on that. And what do you think the future looks like with that? I mean, just running quickly ahead, your work is around immigration. There
Yeah,
could be huge, huge consequences for that. There's this big
yeah.
fear of what's going on. I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
The whole system in India is one of the main reasons why our parents came here in the first place. The biggest one is poverty, yeah, which none of us like to admit now, because we all think our parents were millionaires when they came over. But actually, I doubt if any of us have ever sat down with our parents and said, Dad, tell me about your childhood and tell me why you came here and how you came here. Another myth is we all think that our dads were invited here by Queen Elizabeth because she sent a letter to them in the pen. Janelle ਸਿਆ ਤੇਰੀ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਲੋੜ ਪਈ in the United Bakery ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਤੂੰ ਆ ਕੇ bread ਬਣਾ ਇੱਥੇ. I think that's not the case. I know I spent my 20 years of my life talking to people who've come here and under what conditions they've come here and why they've come here. And the things they tell me, they don't match up to our perception of that. That's the first thing. The reason why people come here is because they're ducky to escape for a better life, or they've had a real bad life and they don't want their kids to go through the same thing. Now, for people like with the Kisan laws, yeah, I don't think this is going away anywhere very quickly at all. I think we're in a standoff, and there needs to be now some skillful negotiation between the two parties. At one point, the Kisan movement was nearly dead, but then it was got because of a few actions of a few individuals, but it got rescued by the actions of a few individuals, and now it's pretty good and thriving. And I think we've now got a standoff where one side is saying, well, we've done what we've done with the laws. We're not going to repeal them because if we do, then everyone, when they want a law repeal, it's going to come and sit at Delhi and are going to start a protest. And that sends out a signal that we're weak. And on the other side, you've got a set of people who said, well, hold on, this is about our livelihood. We're not backing down until you give us a certain number of guarantees. And so you now have a standoff here between two parties. And the thing is, a lot of people don't understand. So I get a lot of commentators talking about it, and I listen to them and I think, you don't really understand what the matter is. You're just blindly shouting slogans, or you're saying what other people's uh, listen to. The system for farmers in India has never been good. Has never been good. It is the only system in the world where the seller, which is the farmer who grows the crop, sells for the lowest price possible. Yeah. The customer buys at the highest rate possible, and the middleman makes the chunk of the money. Right? That's the only system at the moment. If it was so perfect before these laws came in 2017, 10,000 farmers would not have committed suicide. So in 2017, 10,000 farmers committed suicide because of debts and because of that system that was in place. Does that tell you that that is a sign of a successful system? No, it doesn't. But the new laws proposed, that's not the answer either. You don't replace the local middleman with companies like Amazon and, like eBay, the equivalent of that. What you would need to do is to knock that whole system down and create a whole new infrastructure where the farmer, if he wants to sell something for 100 rupees, yeah, or sell his product for 100 rupees, then he gets to keep 80, 90 rupees of that. And the middleman only takes 10%. You've got stuff in India where the farmer sells for 100, his crop is then sold by the middleman to the consumer for 180. The middleman has made 80, doing F-all, acting as just an intermediary. He hasn't grown the crop, yeah, he hasn't packaged it, and all he's done is found a seller for the buyer. And that's where the system is flawed and it needs to be corrected. So the answer is to knock the whole system down and make a new infrastructure. No one's thinking about that at the moment. It's all about, right, let's go back to the old system where 10,000 people die a year. That's not good enough either. And in the middle of it, unfortunately, protesters are dying because of cold, bamariyan, suicides, COVID, and in between. And you've had about 250 people die so far. And they're the main breadwinners in their families. And now their families have lost a breadwinner, all because their main breadwinner decided to go out and protest. And during that protest, which has carried on for 100 odd days now, nothing has been achieved in that much. In fact, that what either side wants hasn't been achieved. And there's been no middle ground for negotiation. And that's it. We are where we are. We're at this standoff. And I think this is going to go on. I think the farmers are camped there for at least, they can camp there for another 2 or 3 years. The government are hoping that April comes, and that just isn't going to happen. This is going to go on. It's about buttering the farmers up, the farmers getting Jamalil, losing their old support system, and then totally at the hand of these sort of companies. Exactly the same thing happened with the phone lines. So there was a company called BSNL, which was India's national company. These new companies come along and said, we'll give you free internet, we'll give you this, we'll give you that. Everyone dumped BSNL, BSNL flopped. All that was left were the big companies who then upped their prices and hiked them. There's no more free internet. Now we're going to charge you what I want. The same thing happened with public schools and India schools. So the Sarkari schools, yeah, were in place. The private schools came along, offered the low rates at first, excellent quality teaching. No one went to the state schools. Everyone went to private schools. State schools have failed. And now the private schools are hiking up the prices and pricing everyone out and charging what they want. The same thing happens. And this is the same model that is going to happen in the farming thing. And when that happens with the farming thing, then people lose their lives, people lose their livelihoods. And, it affects a lot of people. I mean, the new system won't affect people with 1 acre or 2 acres because they don't grow enough land to go and sell them in the mandis. They used to sell it in their local markets. But it's going to affect the big landlords, and it's going to affect the middlemen who are making a lot of money. And it's going to help these big corporations enter into a market from where they were previously excluded or they haven't been in. And so they're licking their lips. The government are spending like 90,000 crores rupees a year on this failed system of MSP, which they call a minimum support price. Yeah. And so, of which only about 17% of farmers use anyway. Yeah. So the government are trying to get out of that 90,000 crore bills that they pay a year. Yeah. The farmers are saying, well, no, we want to keep it. especially farmers from Punjab and Haryana, are saying we want to keep it because they're the two big farming states. And so you've got this terrible situation that's just happened due to a lack of infrastructure. And that's all it is. There's hardly an infrastructure for anything in India. And for the things that the infrastructure that there is, it doesn't go according to policy. It's like the roads in India. Yeah, they've all got road markings.
Yeah.
Right, you know, and I know how many people go according to them. None, right? They've all got traffic
Yeah.
lights there. How many people go according to that? Mate, when the railway crossing closes, people still cross.
Still
I've
got
seen people take their scooters underneath there. So there's no obedience of that. There's no implementation of that, and that's what you get when you've got a structure, but you've got no one to implement it, and so or no one just cares about it.
Yeah, I mean, the infrastructure in a wider aspect, especially about the debts that we were talking about, the sort of farmer suicide. I in some ways, from the addiction services where I was working in, the drugs and alcohol, and not in Punjab, it's come very, very closely linked from that bit. We don't get that much data out of India in Punjab. You've got now a lot of young people you can see have become, I don't want to say, woke in that way in terms of what's going on in there. And that's building up this real momentum. Do you think that's been the kind of the silver lining in terms of where people have, repeatedly on social media getting more and more outspoken and things like that, and then, individuals like yourselves who are becoming more vocal around it? Do you think that's kind of sharing the pressure, or is it still kind of they still need like a leader in order to try and take things more forward? You don't get the. Go on, sorry.
I think choosing a leader is a bit of a tricky thing. Everyone wants to be a leader. No one's got the capability to be a leader. No one's got a track record of being a proven leader. And like, why would you want to be a leader in a standoff against the government? Yeah, because ultimately you won't get thanked for it. You'll probably get the government gunning for you for it. Yeah, that's like me saying, "Go on, Ricky, lead a protest against Boris Johnson," and you'll think of 3 times before you do it because you think, right, do I really want this government on my back? Do I really want to, And you're not going to get a shabashi for it. Everyone's going to go home and do their own thing. That's the one thing. Yeah. So but in relation to that, people getting more aware is a great thing. Ricky, media catchphrase. Yeah. The catchphrase is this: it doesn't matter what the question is. The answer is always education. So in this, people have begun to educate themselves and people have begun to learn about it. That's never a bad thing. That's never a bad thing. There are, of course, people who will try and use this situation to exploit it, to make money for themselves, to sell their products. Yeah, we see that all the time. But I think people educating themselves is a good thing. And anywhere where you educate yourself, I'll never call that a bad thing. And the youth of Punjab need to educate themselves. They need to educate themselves. The youth of India need to educate themselves. India is such a thriving country. 65% of the population is under like the age of 35. It's a young country. It has its own issues of corruption, poverty, bad distribution of wealth. But then the youngsters, once they get educated, they can overcome this. But the fact is, until that happens, we're still going to have problems. We're going to have problems in a country the size of India. It's not as if India doesn't have the money. India are giving loans to other countries. They're giving vaccines to other countries. Right? So they must have the money. And so the fact is they've got the money, it just isn't distributed, it just doesn't go where it needs to go. And I think that's the problem. But education, it won't happen overnight. It will take years and years and years, probably way after me and you are dead, and maybe even after our children are dead. But it will get there one day. India will get there one day. I've got faith in humanity and I've got faith in people. There's only so much of a bad system people will take until a revolution happens. History has told us that. There's only so much oppression that you can take, that poor people can take, before people will revolt and decide enough is enough. And there will emerge leaders at that time, but leaders who have come out from them oppressed people, not leaders who are rich and wealthy, not leaders who are there to make numbers for themselves or looking at their Twitter followers and say, "Mere kinne hon follower ho gaye, meri ta balle balle hai." Not leaders looking for to stand on a stage and go, "Look at me, look at me," but real leaders. And real leaders come from hard times, and hard times make true leaders. and they will come from the oppressed masses, and they'll be the leaders that we need, and they'll be the leaders who people will follow. People who are one of them, not somebody from outside, not somebody who's lived a cushy life like me or people from the UK, Canada, USA, but one of them, one of the oppressed, not people who are celebrities, singers and actors and all of that, but an actual oppressed farmer will come and raise his voice and people will follow.
Mm. Pretty heavy, pretty heavy to
It's
content
heavy,
to,
it's
to
heavy.
think about, isn't
Yeah,
it? You know what I mean?
it's very
Um,
heavy. Yeah.
just
But once again, if that prompts people to educate themselves,
mm,
then by all means, get online, educate themselves. In nowadays, we
it's
have to
such
go to the
it's
library to read a book.
yeah. I mean, it's such a sensitive conversation, but you always get kind of that when you speak to your mates, family, and that you could definitely there's pain there. Everyone's going through.
Yeah, we're
There's
all
sort is
hurting.
there all the time. It's
We're,
always
we're,
there.
we're all hurting, Ricky, because we've come from the same thing. And it doesn't matter what your background is, somewhere along the line, you are, bound by a farming family if you're from India. They've either paid for you to go abroad, you've got a loan off these middlemen to go abroad, you're a shopkeeper, you sell products which are produced by farmers, you make tractors, your farmers book you at weddings.
Mm.
Yeah. So down along, it doesn't matter what you are, you're all associated with farming at some stage. That's why it hurts. We go back and see our Punjab and our kid and all that, and I have a peaceful time there. But actually, if we go back and live there, then we see it might not be a good place for us to live. It might not be a place where we want to raise our kids because things aren't all hunky dory there. And you touched on this, and you're the best person to talk about this drug and alcohol addiction. Right? Drug and alcohol addiction, your whole life, a majority of it, has been involved around educating people about that. Now, whatever your question is, I bet the answer is education, right? Now, what you do is
Yeah,
educate, and you educate people about that. And look, and it doesn't matter. You see Punjabis here who have come from them families with addictions, and here it increases, and here they're roaming the streets,
yeah.
addicted. Those people have been sent over here to make a better life, thinking England will cure them, when in
Yeah.
fact it hasn't. It's not a
It just
cure sending people.
it just goes straight into suitcase. It's been. I'll be honest. That it got me to a point where I was just burnt out.
Yeah,
I remember. Twitter was a different place when you first started. I remember
yeah, it
then.
was.
I got to a stage and then someone tweeted me, or I can't remember, was it a tweet or message saying, "Oh, you're banging on about the same thing," and it really bugged me. I would put something stupid up, on social media, like a Man United score or something, and you'd
Yeah,
get loads of interaction. If
yeah.
you put in, oh, this is the best article telling you about there's a de-addiction center in this
I want to
area,
know.
how to, you'd barely get anybody talking about it or mention it. And it used to really wind me up. And to the point where it was like, look, you got 28 million people in Punjab. At some stages, there was like 65% of some of the families. I mean, these are the stats back then. Hopefully I'm wrong now. It had one person in the family in the last 12 months addicted to drugs.
Mm.
I remember when I came to your office in West Brom really to
That's
interview
right.
you
Yeah,
about six,
yeah,
7 years ago, and that prompted on for me to do a conference trying to highlight this, and it in essence nobody cared. No, nobody really gave a shit at that point, and I just got worn out. I just got worn out because people would, it's not their fault. They were living their day to day stuff. They didn't really know about it. In some ways, and harsh to say, I don't really think they cared what was going on over there because it
yeah,
doesn't affect their day to day life.
yeah,
But when you see generations, getting wiped out from health inequalities,
yeah,
that for me is saying, hang on, we've got an issue. People coming over here, sleeping under railway bridges, sleeping in under these canal tunnels. I was in you're in an unfortunate position of trying, where you could try and help and promote drug awareness and do all of these things, and you were just getting nothing back. And I got sick of it at one stage. I got really sick of my own voice, doing it, saying the same things time and time and again, and it not really, making that much a difference. But one of the positive things with the Kassan stuff is there's loads of anti-drug messages at that, at there, which is good, and you want
It's
to
educating
believe it's
themselves.
all
Yeah.
true. Yeah, and it is all about the education. I think one thing. Sorry, I know I'm just rambling a little bit,
No, no, you're not. You're not.
especially earlier in the lockdown last year.
Mm.
The amount of phone calls I was getting from people who were drinking at home, it increased. The families, um, people who were used to being taking cocaine on a weekend, started taking it at home. And I got to a point where it was, I had to just stop. And there were people who were going to people's houses to trying to save these people. I ain't going to mention names, but they were very well known people, very well
Mm.
known people that I was, that I've that I've had some involvement in. And I just thought this is just getting worse. And now you're getting the average age of people coming into treatment is around about the 40s. It's 39 for alcohol, sorry,
I can believe that. I can believe that.
for drugs. And at that time they got the disposable income. They're not spending the petrol money. So all of a sudden that's getting spent 3 or 4 times.
No need to spend it in a club.
Yeah,
No need to
and then
impress anybody.
that's it. And so people self-medicating of drinking more, taking illegal substances. So I kind of lost my train of thought in that one, but it was like the education side of it is massive, but the education only works if people want to listen, and I think that's the difference of you could take a horse to water, you can't make it drink, but
Ricky,
we're
I'm going
trying
to
to
share
make
something with you now.
we're going to try and make him thirsty.
Right? I'm going to share something with you now. When I first started off on social media, I was just like that, and I was thinking, right, why are some people reacting to some things and not reacting to some things? I'd put something funny on, and I'd get like 200 likes, and I put something serious on, 5 likes, and I'm like, what's going on here? We've all been through that, but then
Yeah,
you've got to realize that you can have your different topics are for different audiences.
yeah,
So different things go on different places at different times to different crowds. You know? And some of your tweets aren't going to be as popular as your other tweets.
yeah, of course, of course.
Because some people just go onto social media for a laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah. For which I think TikTok is brilliant for that. Yeah. So if you want to sit there and waste 3 hours of your time listening to Bagwas or looking at stupidity, TikTok is brilliant for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I use my Instagram to put my pearls of wisdom on there. So my
Mm.
quotes, my sayings, and I put that on there, my thoughts on there. My Facebook I use for my personal feelings. And my YouTube I use for my funny videos. So
Mm.
that's different crowds have catered for different people. And that's how it's just got to be. And you've got to realize that all of your audience isn't going to appreciate all of what you say. Your audience only connects with you mostly for part of what you say. There's very rare people out there who will believe in everything you say. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And
Yeah.
that's okay. So, but that doesn't mean your message is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah? That doesn't mean your message is wrong. And so your message is right. You just haven't got the right set of people listening to you, or you're just not telling it to the right people.
Yeah. Of
Yeah,
course. Of
it's
course.
like me telling Eskimos that putting ice in their drink is a good idea.
Makes it
They're gonna
cold.
look at me like weird. Yeah. If I go to the Caribbean and give it the same message, I've got a massive audience who are gonna say, yeah, right, what it is. So it's all about getting the right product to the right people, to the right audience, and that's something that comes with time. That's something that has taken me a long time to
No,
learn.
you're
Be funny.
100% right. 100% right. I think it's when you break it down into that analogy, it makes sense. I was just I think even for this, I just got to a point where I was like, something, I don't really care. I want to interview people who interest me, and I just always wanted to
Yeah,
ask those questions. You never get I always wanted to ask certain questions from people and get the answer. So I don't care if it's one person watches this or 100. It's this is for me. It's kind of cathartic for me, and like yourself, what the wide range of stuff that we've talked about. You could see you're not in just one category. You people are just more than their social media accounts. I think
of
that's
course, of
that's
course,
the point.
of course. And unfortunately, people think they read a tweet about you or they watch a video about it, and they think they know you
Yeah.
when they don't, without making an effort. And I make the same mistake. I've made
Mm.
the same mistake before, but as I've become more older, I reckon I've become more tolerant of that and a bit more understanding. I've got a lot more empathy for people I didn't used to have. And like I said, these are the sort of things that I'm saying that, I'd look back on, I'd change about myself. And I wish I'd changed earlier, but all that happens in time and experience. It's about growth. We're growing. And, you know, it's, I could look at you, Ricky, and say, like what? And say the Ricky of 20 years ago is not the Ricky of now.
No, idiot.
Right. So you look at your journey, and you look at your growth, and do I think you'll think, yeah, you know what? I have grown. It's just about analyzing it. And it's nothing, do what you want to, mate. Your social media is your own space to say what you want and do what you want. Yeah? To apna jo marji hai kya khul ke and use your voice in whatever way you think it feels. Whether you think there's one person listening, whether you think there's a million people listening. Yeah? And you need to do that. You're right, it is therapeutic. And this is therapeutic. Because all of this, what we've talked about today, was inside us. And now it's out. Yeah, and when we go to sleep tonight, that burden is going to be off our shoulders, and I'll have a good need tonight. One, because I've been up since 6 o'clock, because I've been in Birmingham and back. Two, that I travelled 4 hours. Yeah, medical day bus for you.
I know. I can see. We're gonna call it. We'll call it.
But three, because I've managed to unburden myself, and God knows how many months this stuff has been inside me, and I've wanted to get it out, and I've done it. Just like I got that stuff out when my video at the hospital. Today, I've got my stuff out via your video. So you've helped me unburden myself, and I can't thank you enough for that. And I'll tell you,
cheers, man.
Look, I've managed to, I've said a lot of things that I wanted to, and probably to myself. And I'll watch this and I'll listen to it myself, and I'll realize, yeah, you know what, that's a good interview. And likewise, when I interview you, and I'm sure I will many times in the future. Because we've got lots to talk about, because the new show that we do, the Recognise One show, on that's proven to be a big hit. And, we did the Kisans in Need. And that was like above all of my expectations. I wasn't even expecting that. So the response to that, plus all the various other stuff that I do, our paths will cross, because you've got good information to give, Ricky. But, we'll make sure it gets to the right audience.
That's the key. So in terms of the bandwagon is coming to a halt. Is there anything in terms of Harjap, that you feel like you need to to get off your chest even more? But if not, then what does the next sort of 6 months look like for you?
For me, the one thing I'd like to just tell people is, right, we're so worried about what this world wants us to be, that we stop being ourselves. Yeah, and the hardest thing to be is to be yourself in a world where it's trying to make you into something else. So please be yourself. Please be yourself out there. That's what I just want to say. Be real. Keep it real. Yeah. Try and educate yourselves. Yeah. Try and help each other. But if you can't, then don't upset each other. Put paths. Block each other's paths. That's what I would say. And if you don't like it, something, don't read it. Don't listen to it. Don't watch it. Don't follow it. It's quite simple, yeah. And so I would say that the next 6 months for me, God, involves the Recognise One show, which we do. So I'm doing that. I'm now on BBC Radio 5. I do a show with Nihal every month where we talk about immigration issues on a mainstream radio station as Radio 5, right? And I started off from Radio Nangana. So when I took on that growth,
Stratford Road.
Stratford Road on a 28-day license with my first radio presenter, Raj Gung. Woo! Right. So, for me, that is it's a big journey. I'm on mainstream TV. I've got 2 films ready to be filmed this year. One's ready to be released with Jimmy Shergill. Mate, I grew up watching Bollywood films, and now I'm in Punjabi films. For me, that's a big journey in itself. Like someone like me, who's not even confident of my looks or whatever, my talent. I'm not an actor. I'm not a singer. I'm not a TV host. But, somewhere down the line, I've grown and I've decided to believe in myself. And all of that has come with confidence and changes that I've made. If you're not happy with yourself, make the changes. You're not going to get that happiness sitting on your backside, doing nothing about it, moaning about it every day. It's very easy to say, make the changes. It's hard to do. I know. I still once a week F up, twice a week F up. Today I had a portion of chips from a chippy just before I got on here. Yeah, and a sausage, and that's killing me now. So now I'm gonna fast.
You better watch it. Yeah.
yeah. That's like doing me in, and like, oh man, मैं कल ही खादा. And I was like, चल खा लिया कोई गल नहीं, भुख
But
लगी सी.
tomorrow's a new chance to do it.
Tomorrow's my fasting day, so I'll fast all the way to about 3 or 4. Then I'll know, Tika, at least I got that out of the system. I'll go for a walk despite it being cold or whatever. So,
Yeah.
I'll try and make the changes that I can. But for me, yeah, Hindi films, TV show, radio show, um, spending time with my family. Do you know what? Getting back to hosting events. I love hosting events. I love interacting with people. The most thing I've missed is seeing people. So there was a time when I used to go to like concerts or events, and people used to hug me, and I used to think, yes, I did your anybody there. What's the matter? Now I haven't had a juppy for over a year. I feel like standing in the middle of my road and shouting, "Koi aake juppy da pajo, koi juppy da pajo."
You got to be careful, because if you start asking that, people are going to turn up with their files.
Yeah, that's right. And in the toilet, can you imagine everyone buying a juppy? Kuch nahi hona veer, fir to shitte sare passe hi pe jade hain.
Okay, so on that charming picture, Harjap, it's been a pleasure. I really enjoy this chat, man, and I know we like you said, our paths will cross again soon. So I'd like to thank you, and I really appreciate this. And
Thank you. I'm honored
yeah,
to be your first guest. I'm really honored to be your first guest, and I'm glad that you give me that much respect. For me, that's a total respect.
cheers, mate. All the best.
All the best, and say everyone's mum and dad hi.